team up with superheroes.
That's essentially what Mutants and Masterminds is. It's supposed to tell stories about those old comic book legends, the people who would rise above the odds, get superpowers through ridiculous means, and always seem to have the right thing within their utility belt. If you've ever played D&D and felt, man, this kind of just feels like our characters are superheroes, this takes it to the next level to being actually literally superheroes, playing into all the tropes and common stories that we come to find with comic book stories, and let you run wild with it. I honestly think that this system is incredibly fun and a little weird when it comes to most of the things we expect from TTRPGs, specifically for one reason that I will get into here in a moment. But let's talk about the main differences between D&D and Mutants and Masterminds. Both of these systems run on the D20 system, meaning that you will be using the D20 dice as your main dice when rolling for things. When rolling a skill check, when rolling to hit, yada yada yada, you know what that means. A lot of systems actually do run on this D20 system, so I would expect to see that quite a bit, as it's very common and easy for a lot of systems to use. However, a lot of systems may begin to move away from that in an attempt to differentiate themselves from D&D in the coming future, so keep an eye out for that. But as Mutants and Masterminds specifically, that is where most of the similarities between it and D&D ends. We do use the same sort of skill check system, but it's a little bit different. Mainly, we're going to focus on how the characters are made because that is the largest difference between this and D&D. Mutants and Mastermind is a point-buy system. You buy points in order to gain yourself abilities, and there are no specific classes necessarily. Instead, it just depends on what you're going to use your points for, and then how you're going to use those to shape your powers. Because here's the main thing about Mutants and Masterminds that I think is incredibly interesting, and it's what I was referencing earlier, is the fact that you choose your powers based off what you want to do. You don't really look in the book and say, oh, I'm going to be a pyromancer, or I'm going to be telekinetic, I'll be a shapeshifter, I'll have magic powers. No, it's kind of just up to you to shape what kind of powers you want. Instead, you'll choose, using your point-buy system, something like an energy blast ability. And now it's up to you to determine exactly what that is. Are you blasting with divine power given to you by a god? Or is it just fire bursting out of your hand? Or is it literally just a plasma rifle you've pulled out and you're shooting? Now, I know that may seem a little bit arbitrary. Ultimately, doesn't it all just come down to the fact that you're using the energy blast ability? Isn't that a little boring? But the unique thing about Mutants and Mastermind is it actually encourages you to take that to its full conclusion. If I am a pyromancer and I am shooting fire out of my hand with the energy blast ability, then I can describe the fact that I'm going to catch something on fire with that. Meanwhile, if I was using the Divine Blast ability and we were fighting something like, say, an undead ghost, we could take it a little bit more to its conclusion and saying that that Divine Blast is actually repellent towards them, pushing them backwards. Now, it doesn't go so far as to allowing the players to just make up whatever they want on the fly. There are stipulations to this. These sort of extra abilities based on the flavor of what you've chosen only affect certain things. They only affect things that are helpless or otherwise wouldn't have been very important to the story. The game puts a lot of narrative focus on letting the players decide what their powers would do because there's not a huge structure in the actual rules. In D&D, you know what you're getting into. When you play a paladin, you're playing a holy warrior who uses radiant damage to smite things. But in an M&M, you're doing things a little bit differently. You get to decide what sort of powers you want to do and the incidentals that come from that. The thing is this is only incidental and just used for the narrative. At a certain point, you have to understand that villains are not going to be so easily swayed. Yes, you could blast fire at a villain, but they're not just going to get caught on fire and burned to death. Similarly, you can't just blast radiant damage at this big old villain and they're going to be blasted back simply because they're evil. That's not how it works. Now, there are effects which you can add on to your abilities that you use the point-buy system to add. So if you did want your divine ability to have the ability to blast people backwards, even the villains, you could add that on, and that is absolutely an option. But you have to actually develop points into it. But powers aren't the only thing. You can also buy skills as you would expect in D&D, and these act similar to proficiencies. Additionally, you can buy equipment which has the same thing as powers, but it has the add-on of being removable. And not only this, you can go further than this and create what's called a device. This is essentially using equipment for your powers. Think like Iron Man or somebody who uses a magical amulet in order to channel their powers. Yes, it is a power, but it can be removed. But here's the fascinating part. M&M puts such a large emphasis on trust between the players and the DMs, it actually makes sure that you trust each other. Yes, this device could be removed, which is a majority of your power, which would make you pretty useless in a fight. However, in the rules, it states that at the end of the scene, you're going to get your device back if it was stolen, whether you manage to barely grab it away from the villain, or it gets dropped in the middle of the fight, or you have the ability to create a new one. The point is, you're going to be able to get those back. And this is why I think M&M is so fascinating, because it specifically goes out of its way to put a lot of the narrative control in the hands of the players, while still allowing them to look at the rules and figure out what the rules allow them to do, which I think is way more fascinating. Now, there is a lot of math when it comes to creating your character in the system, but let's be honest, any system that uses point buy is going to be very number crunchy at the beginning, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Allow that to happen so that you can create your characters in the best way possible, and then move forward and through the game without it being so crunchy. Do all the math at the beginning. I think that is honestly the best way to go. Now, when running a campaign like this, you're going to have to keep everything in mind. All the heroes, all the superheroes, the different secret organizations that you've created, which means you're going to need a good tool to use it, which introduces our sponsor for today, World Anvil. Now, it's not often that I get to say this, but this isn't something that I needed to learn anything about because I already use World Anvil for my campaigns, which makes me really excited to talk about it. It's an incredible tool that allows you to create a wiki-style environment in order to track everything in your world, and it is so helpful for tracking everything down. You can create hyperlinks, jump to different articles, and it can even be used for players to track and watch information for their own characters so that they don't get too lost in keeping down their notes. I honestly find this tool so incredibly useful, and I think it is a must-have for most dungeon masters who want to run complex worlds. If you want to go down into the description, we actually have a coupon code right now, PYR, that gives 40% off a yearly subscription, and I'm going to be honest, I really can't recommend this enough to you guys. I think it is an awesome tool for writers, game masters, or anybody who just wants to create a world of their own and be able to keep track of it, and it is an invaluable tool for any of those creative minds. Anyways, back to Mutants and Masterminds. But let's move into how the game is actually run. See, it's very similar in the way that D&D works, where you have your exploration, your social encounters, and your combat encounters. Now, honestly, as far as I can tell, most TTRPGs run on a very similar system to that. And for Mutants and Masterminds specifically, it's meant to be much more narratively flexible on the heroes parts. You gain things called heroes points, and those points are used to influence the narrative. Like, you can use them to do things like re-roll a dice, sure, or you can use them to go ahead and grab something that was not there before. Say you're fighting a flame-based monster and you use a hero point, and now there's a fire extinguisher next to you. It doesn't just retcon things necessarily, but it adds influence for the players into the world narratively where it would make sense. If we're sitting in an abandoned warehouse, sure, there's a fire extinguisher there. Why not? If we're fighting in the middle of a street, why would there be a fire extinguisher there? However, there could be a fire hydrant. You have to make it make sense, but it could be very fun to make that work. A lot of the emphasis on making things work narratively is placed on the players in this system, which I think is interesting, but it really does require your players to be pretty mature storytelling-wise. They have to be willing to play into their weaknesses, and that is actually encouraged by the system. Many times you get hero points by playing into your weaknesses where it makes sense, and it encourages the Game Master? Game Master. And it encourages the Game Master to only apply hero points when they played into their weaknesses and it made sense. If you typically have a cowardly hero that just suddenly overcomes that cowardice because there was really no other way to overcome the combat encounter, well, that doesn't necessarily deserve a hero point. However, if overcoming that moment of weakness was something that was built up to, then yes, maybe give them a hero point. Or if they chose to run away from the battle, absolutely give them a hero point. It implies that the players really do need to be mature about their storytelling prowess here, and I like that system. I think it's good, but you have to be careful and make sure you're playing with the right players to make that work. As the game continues forward, you have to continue to keep in mind what it is that your players are doing. Mutants and Mastermind really is meant to be more collaborative than most games that I've seen. It allows the players to move in, and it allows them to influence the story by spending hero points, by making dice rolls, by inferring things that should happen, by playing into their character weaknesses, and it's up to the Game Master to play off of those things. It also does allow a lot of trust between the players and the Game Master. Like I mentioned earlier, you can have the removable effect on a lot of your equipment, which means that that item will be removed, which is a big deal. As such, the game implies that the Game Master will make sure that you get that item back at the end of the scene. Either you've managed to barely snag it back from the villain as they escape, or it was dropped on the ground somewhere, or you have the ability to reforge it. The game goes out of its way to make sure that there is goodwill between the Game Master and the players, but it really does require everybody at the table to also be on board with that concept, or else the entire thing will fall flat. Ultimately, I do think Mutants and Mastermind is incredibly numbers heavy at the beginning, and it does get a little number crunchy in the middle, but honestly, I think it really does all come together in a very cohesive manner to allow you all to tell a story together about superheroes, villains, and everything in between. It's a little bit cheesy, yes, but ultimately, it's all between the players and the GM on how cheesy you're going to make it. Are you going to take it seriously or not? I think really the game mechanics allow it to flow more into a cheesier type of game, but it's up to you guys, and I think that's the great part about TTRPGs in general. If you want to hear me talk about a different system, you can watch a video right here where I go into the systems on that and specifically what types of stories you can tell at your table.